Welcome back to the Information Security Forum podcast. I am here with Steve Durbin, Managing Director, for a conversation about ransomware, the malware of choice for cybercriminals. In recent years, it was thought that ransomware may have been a thing of the past. How wrong that was, as now it's back and poses a bigger threat than ever before. Such as the force of ransomware attacks, they are given names, like Locky, WannaCry, or BadRabbit. And like hurricanes, they hit unexpectedly, spread at speed, and can cause catastrophic damage. According to the Verizon 2017 Data Breach Investigations report, the use of ransomware to extort money from victims is escalating. The report indicates a 50% increase in ransomware attacks compared to last year. The ISF predicted the increase in ransomware in its Threat Horizon 2019 report, released in February of this year. Steve, I'm sure that ISF members, and indeed all organizations that have been affected by this kind of attack, would like to know what they can do to reduce the risk from strains of ransomware. So, Steve, what areas do you feel will become attractive to cybercriminals in 2018?
One of the things that we have noticed is this increase in malware. And there are two reasons for it. I think the first is that crime as a service is on the increase. Crime as a service has really opened up opportunities for the aspiring cybercriminal. Organised crime groups certainly still own that particular space. But of course, it's very easy to buy tools, services on the darknet if you so choose, and to sort of get into the game, if I could put it that way. And ransomware has been highlighted, I think, by Europol and many of the other agencies around the world as being something that is on the increase. Why is that? Well, certainly, as I've said, through crime as a service, it's very easy to get hold of. Secondly, though, it's also very effective. In 2016, it generated about $1 billion worth of revenue from a cybercriminal standpoint. And I think that it's a trend that we're going to see continuing. One of the challenges with it, of course, is how do you protect against it? And it does take us into the whole realm of what can we do about it, how do we raise awareness. It isn't just about making sure that our firewalls are in place and so on. It's much more complicated than that. And I think the reason for it is that we have so many different endpoints that are appropriate for malware to be delivered through to an organization. So it's challenging on a number of different fronts.
How lucrative are ransomware attacks? And will we see this moving into the Internet of Things, do you think?
Well, certainly they are lucrative for the organised crime groups. What we've started to see, certainly through 2017, is some of these more aspiring cybercriminals getting into the game who perhaps don't fully understand how to monetize. Bitcoin is the currency of choice, but of course you then have to be able to move that, and I think this is where some cybercriminals have been falling down. But I expect that to change. So we're going to see a maturing of the space. So it is lucrative. It will continue to be lucrative. Why is that? Well, because very many organizations and indeed individuals, of course, are prepared to pay because you need to have your data. You haven't backed it up as well as you might have done. You haven't protected it because, of course, it's never going to happen to you. And I think the other thing about ransomware that we need to understand is that actually it is fairly simple to inject. You can do it simply by having people visit websites. You can have it through phishing emails, a whole range of different ways in which you can actually get the ransomware onto devices. And then you really are down to just letting the user click and go, and you're in. So it's attractive, I think, for all of those reasons. And yes, of course, it is lucrative because there's a large number of people out there who are just prepared to pay the money in order to get access to their data.
How do you trust a cybercriminal once you've paid ransom?
Well, in the good old days of cybercrime, ransomware was founded really on this trust paradigm. If you think about it, a ransom is you can only ask for a ransom if you can guarantee getting payment, because otherwise the business model tends to fall over. So you may well drop some ransomware onto my device, ask me for a certain amount of money. The smart cybercriminal would pitch that at a point that you considered it not too much, but certainly a reflection of the value of your data. And you would really trust the cybercriminal that if you paid the money, to give you access to your data. And that was the way that it worked, because in order for it to be an effective business model, you had to trust, otherwise you wouldn't pay. And if you don't pay, then there's no point in carrying out the scam, is there? One of the challenges we're now seeing, of course, with some of these more aspiring cybercriminals who are perhaps buying ransomware through crime as a service, is that they aren't following the rules. So they're spoiling it for some of the more mature organised crime groups. As I say, I do expect that to change, and ransomware isn't going to go away anytime soon. But certainly we've seen a little bit of a shift with some of these new market entrants in this particular space.
You really are the only person I ever discussed the business model of crime with. What should organizations be doing to protect and prepare for imminent attacks?
I think there's a few things. First of all, you have to focus on the basics. You do have to patch. You do have to put in place your software updates. Secondly, it is about awareness. I think organizations have always struggled with security awareness, but in this particular area, it is fundamental. Users need to understand that they need to think before they click. So I think that there are a whole range of different awareness programs that organizations are putting out there that really do emphasize to users that if they see something that looks a little bit off, a little bit strange, there's a fair old chance there is something wrong with it. Don't click on it. Send it to the appropriate department and let them handle it. But in order to do that, of course, you have to communicate that message so that users are very aware of it. And so again, I think it's about really trying to hit on some of the things that end users can relate to. And for me, it's always about what really matters to me as an individual, probably not the business element. So focus more on some of the home elements. Think about how you can help end users protect themselves from, when you look at things like mobile banking platforms, for instance, how they can protect their children online, because those are the areas that people tend to remember. And then what you find is they bring that back into the workplace. So we need to focus on the basics. We need to really up our game when it comes to awareness and education. We need to really work much better in a collaborative environment at two levels. First, with the authorities, police, federal authorities in the United States, for instance, but also within our sectors, within other organizations. It is about sharing information. It is about collaboration. It is about trying to understand which particular strains of malware are out there, ransomware, cryptoware, whatever it happens to be, and what you can do to guard against it. And we're not as good at doing that as some of the cybercriminals are, who have a very well-developed communication pattern, particularly on the darknet. So I think we need to up our game in that particular area as well.
Interesting. As always, so much to consider. It's clear that organizations need to start gathering threat intelligence to protect themselves from this increasing stream of ransomware attacks, especially if those criminals aren't going to play by the rules. You are always reinforcing that, as well as the technical protection an organization must put in place, creating a cyber-savvy workforce that takes information security seriously, all while fostering a culture of trust. All of these will help to eradicate poor security practices, as well as reduce the number and scale of incidents. For more information on the evolution of ransomware and for guidance on what you can do to prepare for and reduce the risk from ransomware attacks, visit securityforum.org.